And then Meghan tops that off with the most ignorant statement I've heard thus far. To build while you are still building. You have to listen. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, Leilani's Hair Salon. Today, we'll be reviewing Meghan Markle's podcast episode 3 with Katie Lee, her hairdresser. Building your brand brick by brick. In my last review of the podcast, I got a comment from one of you lovely subscribers who said, was she invited on just for the pregnancy comment? And then another subscriber said, maybe pregnancies will be a theme. This is 2 out of 2 where Meghan has got to go on a parallel with pregnancy issues, serious illness and miscarriage. Perhaps a future guest will have experienced ideations, placenta previa, or postpartum. Well, let's find out.
Let's go.
In this episode, Meghan Markle, the Barbara Walters of our time, is interviewing her hairdresser. By the way, none of these people Meghan Markle would have ever met if she was not married to Prince Harry. And by the way, even then, none of them are A-listers or high-profile people. It's crazy that she cannot even forge those relationships with the silver spoon that she's been given. This starts out with a theme we've been seeing in all the podcasts, which is the obligatory, how did you meet me?
Let's start when we first met. What year was that?
Oh, it was 2020.
It was 2020. It was very much
It was very much 2020.
This gives Meghan Markle's guests the chance to shower her with love and affection and admiration. This time is a little bit different because in this case, Katie is saying that she was only put in touch with Meghan Markle because her ex-boss, Serge, who she adores, told her that Meghan Markle needed a hairdresser during the pandemic, girl. So Katie had to jump up and bram and get to Meghan Markle immediately. Now this made me think. The last time we heard anything about hairdressers before Katie Lee was that diabolical situation that happened between Victoria Beckham and Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle reached out to Victoria Beckham, the story goes, and asked her for a hairdresser in LA. Meghan Markle, who has been beaten around the bush and in the crevices all throughout Hollywood all her life, could not find a hairdresser and had to reach out to Victoria Beckham for advice. Of course, we know that was just because she was trying to forge a friendship with the very popular Victoria Beckham. So Victoria Beckham gives Meghan Markle the name of her hairdresser, etc., etc. And whatever happens, I don't know if Victoria then ghosted her after giving that information, but Meghan Markle is such a diabolical patch that she went out and said that Victoria Beckham leaked the name of the hairdresser and that the press and the paparazzi were going to hound her at that hairdresser. To which Victoria Beckham was like, girl, you don't think I have better things to do with my time than leak the name of your hairdresser, which is also my hairdresser? I mean, this makes no sense. And of course, that was the severing of the relationship between Victoria Beckham and Meghan Markle, if ever there was to have one. David Beckham then went on to say that the Markles and the Beckhams have nothing in common when it comes to family values. Meghan cannot maintain relationships, and in terms of Victoria Beckham, no real celebrities trust her. So this is why we're getting all these no-name people to talk to her. Anyway, back to the interview. So Harry and Meghan greet Katie with this hug. And Katie is taken aback by that. That is to reinforce that Meghan's a hugger. But also, during the pandemic, girl, I mean, really? Like, people weren't doing that then, you know what I mean? Katie does admit that that was not something she was comfortable with. Really quickly, I'd like to tell you about my new favorite game, Scatter Slots. Scatter Slots is a fantasy casino game, but it is completely free to play and involves no real gambling. You can spin over 100 innovative 777 slots. It's a fun distraction from the reality of life and a great way to occupy your time and utilize your brain, girl. And you can even play offline, which means you can play on airplanes or on subways so you don't have to interact with the crazy people around you. Almost as soon as I started playing, I was winning and getting free spins. You can either spin yourself or hold for an auto spin. Some other features of the game are massive coin packages, huge jackpots and extra benefits, stunning graphics and soundtracks, sounds from the heart of Vegas to your ears, personal quest system, free coins hourly. This super highly rated game is right at your fingertips, just a click away. If you want to try out Scatter Slots, click on the QR code or the link down in the description. Now let's get back to the video. But we go on to talk about Katie's business during COVID. Well, Katie says that she had to close her business. Yeah, join the line. I mean, a lot of people had to close their businesses during COVID. right? But anyhow, she had to close her business during COVID, but it was very sad because she was just beginning to become popular. And so Katie says, I just couldn't catch a break. And of course, Meghan has to bandwagon onto that as quick as can be and say, I couldn't catch a break either.
And it felt like, gosh, we cannot get a break,
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
I think that Meghan having no self-awareness is very funny. I don't know. I just find her funny that she has no self-awareness. She's literally equating people, the millions of people who had to close their businesses due to the pandemic, with her not catching a break for all the mistakes she's made in the last few months. Not in COVID, by the way. She's like, we're not in COVID now, right? I mean, the reach is real. With a little bit of encouragement, as you might expect, the token black Katie goes into how difficult it was for her to figure out everything, especially as a black woman in COVID owning a business, I guess. And I did find that disappointing because I just don't know why Meghan always leads her guests down this path of victimizing themselves just so that she can jump in with her own victim narrative. It happens every time and it just sneaks its way in there. But Katie does have to admit that it was in fact her white women clients that had to save her from this devastation because they stuck with her as she became a mobile hairdresser at that time and so on. Meghan randomly blurts out some buzzwords about community and showing up and blah, blah, blah. And that makes Katie say one of the most insane things I've heard.
Katie's existence may be very different than mine. And now here, I'm asking her to take care of me once again when really we should be taking care of her.
Wow.
Yeah.
And at that point, I realized that Katie has just been markled. Katie, you're the one with the business trying to make money. The clients are the ones spending the money, if you're lucky. It's just transactional. What are we trying to sugarcoat it to be? What are we doing here? Anyway, as I said before, Meghan knows none of these people. They are not really her friends. They are just paid actors. So off the back of what I said about Meghan not really knowing the people she's interviewing, they're just people who work for her, Katie says that she was a black single female. And Meghan's like, oh, I didn't know that. Are you?
Are you saying you're not single now? Have I missed something in the past couple of weeks? What's happening?
Can we stay focused, please?
Okay. Well, you just said it. I was like, oh my, okay.
Perhaps.
Yep, stay on track.
Perhaps.
Well, that's okay, because Katie probably doesn't realize, but we do. We know that Meghan's a single white female. Just like the show in the 90s, with that stalker chick, that bunny boiler. That's what Meghan Markle is. Katie's salon. Katie starts talking about the atmosphere of her salon and that she's really proud because the clients get into deep topics like race, astrology, feminism, and intersexism. And she would record these social chats and put it on Instagram. She would call it patio chats or something like that. And that took off. To me, this sounds like an invasion of privacy, number one. Number two, it sounds like the worst salon experience ever, because I would never want to go to a salon where I have to talk about those kind of things when I just want to get my hair did and get out of there. On that note, we get into Katie's company history. Meghan is very fascinated with the fact that Katie started with a blog because, of course, Meghan is the TIG girl. Don't you forget it. She had the TIG, and that was a big accomplishment. Even though nobody ever knew about it. Like, honestly, it was not a successful blog. I keep trying to explain to people that in the time that Meghan was doing the TIG, there were very successful blogs out there in Asia, in North America, in all parts of the world. Meghan just didn't have one. Okay, so please, let's not pretend at this point. But anyway, she keeps saying that Katie went from the blog to then brick and mortar, which I don't know why she can't call it just a shop, a salon, but she has to call it brick and mortar because she's au fait with the commercial business language, you see. And then Katie went into product range from that. Everything Meghan talks about in these podcasts is to justify her shortcomings. So Katie tries to take a step back and say, well, before all of that happened, it wasn't that quick. I did do odd jobs. And Meghan interrupts her again. And she was like, I did odd jobs too, girl, at Northwestern. And I was like, yeah, I think we heard about them. You worked in a bar. You were a babysitter. for an Irish family. You were like what else do we have to hit? Oh, donut shop. She worked in an ice cream shop. I mean, there were so many odd jobs she did. But what are we going to do now? Well, I can't believe it. This is where she contradicts herself from the last interview about BB tops. Remember the Diamante BB tops?
Oh, the sparkly BB shirt that said BB in sequins across the front. I saved up for that. Yes.
A few moments later.
I used to work at BB with that sparkly BB shirt. It was that time.
So now you worked at BB, Bebe, Boo-boo. But I thought you told Rashma that you had to save up for your BB top because you were so pover that you couldn't even afford a BB top. But if you worked there, you know what I don't know. It doesn't sound like somebody that would have to save up. For one, if you worked there, you would probably get employee discounts. None of it makes sense. And I just wish she would zip it sometimes, because she's only hurting herself by just lying constantly, no? Meghan's podcast has absolutely no structure. So, of course, we move to Jamaica and to Katie's origins. Katie says she was born in Jamaica and then moved to Connecticut. Connecticut. Connections. I wish the podcast was as connected as Connections is connected. Connecticut. Sorry, that was... I'm very happy to learn that Katie is Jamaican, because then she knows that she's talking to a Jinnel. In Jamaican patois, Jinnel is a common slang term referring to a trickster or confidence man. It's an ironic play on the word general, implying a high-ranking or influential person who uses their position to deceive others. Right, Katie? The flat iron debacle. Meghan starts talking about how she used to straighten her hair with a stove hot comb, like what they had in the black and white films, girl. She said that she was at Northwestern in her all-white sorority. How'd you get in there? And she was so embarrassed because she had to use this hot comb because there were no flat irons at the time, electrical ones, and that the girls were like, "What is that?" This is a lie. This is a made-up story. First of all, when Meghan was in college, there were curling irons, there were flat irons, there were all kinds of electrical equipment with cords. Even this old hairdryer thing with this tube is connected to a cord. And this is from about the 20s.
It kind of reminds me of when I was at Northwestern and I moved into Kappa, our sorority there. I don't even think they made plug-in flat irons at the time. They couldn't. If they did, I didn't know where they were because I had the little stove with the flat iron that would go in, have a paper towel on the side. I mean, there's probably half the people listening to this going, "What is she talking about?" Or you'd pull it out, it would have the little scorch marks. And I remember most of the girls in the sorority who were not black say, "What's that smell? Is hair burning?" And it was just what you would do to figure out how to grapple with this texture of hair.
She's lying because, first of all, she chemically straightens her hair. All right? That's the first thing. It's not all about hot comb. She chemically straightens her hair. She wears wigs. She wears hair extensions. And she always has. Secondly, ain't nobody has used these hot combs for decades. Thirdly, her father said he used to use a flat iron to straighten her hair before she went to school. That was in high school. Surely he was not in the dorm with her at college. But that he used to do that so that she could appear more white. I think it's very obviously worrying that Meghan just steals stories or makes up stories, because she could just let this podcast run with people talking. It's never going to be a good podcast because she's attached to it and the people that she's interviewing are not really relevant. But the point is, if she would just not lie, it would be slightly better, I think. Methinks. Somehow we jump back to Jamaica and Katie's Jamaican accent, which she said she has lost. She's not only lost her accent, I think she's lost a lot of her Jamaican spirit, in the sense that she is allowing Meghan to control her narrative. That is not what a Jamaican woman would do. But anyway, she's lost her accent, but she says that when she does go back to Jamaica, she can find it back. And at this point, I wish that she had busted out with a little bit of Jamaican patois or Jamaican accent. That would have given some entertainment to this extremely boring podcast. She could have said something like, "I was taught a saying in Jamaica.
As we say in Jamaica, if you lay down with dog, you wake up with flea."
That's my mom's voice, guys. Shout out to my Jamaican mom. Not that we're talking about Meghan, but We might be. So unfortunately, Katie says that she was the only black girl in the world. Yeah. Her specialty was coloring. She was a colorist, a hair dye specialist. But there were no other black colorists at her first job at Frederick Fekkai in New York City. I find that very hard to believe. I'm sorry. Anyway, she moves to California because it's too cold. And Meghan jumps in here and just repeats what she says in the most cringe way.
I just one day was like, I'm cold and I want to live in sunny California. And Frederick Fekkai had an outpost there. And I was like, to Cali I go.
I love that you were just like, I'm cold.
Serge. So I don't know if you remember Serge from the top of the show, but he's the middleman who introduced Katie to Meghan Markle. Well, Katie says that she had to open her own salon because Serge was the best person she had ever met in her whole life, and she would never imagine working for anyone else because she had worked for the best person in the whole world. Here's my hot take. I think Meghan forced Serge to force Katie to do this podcast.
Hi, Katie. I heard that you have a great podcast that just came out.
Confessions of a Female Founder?
I think that's what it is.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
You're so good in it, Katie.
Yeah, you're amazing.
I hope everyone listens.
Love you.
Naming the business Highbrow Hippie. Katie gives some pretty interesting insight here that she kept that name Highbrow Hippie secret for many years, actually from 2008 until 2020, because it meant so much to her. But she kept it under wraps until it was the right time. And Meghan Markle obviously cannot relate to that because, as you know, she jumps out with these ideas too early. She's very previous and she never makes it work. So it must have been very confusing for Meghan to hear that somebody could cherish something so much and wait for the right time instead of forcing it into the public before it's time. Meghan would never understand that kind of discipline. But unfortunately, it does give Meghan the opportunity to give her excuses and explain about her namings. This is really important. You're going to have to actually hear her voice for this because you can't make this up. This kind of word salad cannot be explained. So you have to hear it.
And also to be working on something quietly.
Yeah.
You know, I had secured As Ever as a name in 2022. And then as everything started to evolve last year and bringing in a partner the size that it was. And it was just so interesting because you remember I said, I like American Riviera as an umbrella.
Yeah.
And then to be able to have verticals beneath it and maybe have the orchard really small.
Yeah.
But when that's not feasible, suddenly it became this word salad. I didn't love that so much. He said, okay, well, let's go back to the thing that I've always loved.
Yeah.
Let's use the name that I had protected for a reason that had been sort of under wraps. And then we were able to focus in the quiet and put our heads down and build on something that no one was sniffing around to even see about. It was just really, really helpful to have that quiet period.
And all Katie could be possibly thinking listening to this word salad is another proverb out of Jamaica.
Horse dead and cow fat and donkey broke him foot.
It's like, what happened? Why you didn't make the deadline? Well, the horse passed away, the cow got too fat, and the donkey got his foot broken. And that means just giving a lot of excuses that make no sense. Katie's research in building her product. Katie did a lot of research in finding out what products her clients would be interested in. She did over 200 questions in a questionnaire to find out what they wanted. And she does do a good job of explaining that process of researching and the work that went into it. Meghan understands absolutely nothing of that and responds with, oh, so it was a gamble then. To which Katie responds, well, no, it wasn't a gamble. We did a lot of research, so we knew what we were doing.
But that still feels like a gamble.
You know, I guess it didn't feel like a gamble to me because I joined an accelerator program.
Is Meghan even willing to share her narcissistic, selfish brain for a moment to listen to what this woman is saying? Katie does explain how difficult it was to raise money to start her new product line and that she entered a competition, which she called an accelerator program. To me, it kind of sounded like a Shark Tank where you're in front of a panel of judges and they can choose you or not choose you to finance. And she won the contest out of 25 other contestants. And Meghan does this really cringe thing. She's like, you won, little girl.
And I won. And
I know you were, you were here. What was that? A week or two afterwards, you were here. And it was just, you were glowing. You won.
Yeah, I was the top business out of all 25.
I don't know how she is like this. She's so unlikable. It's crazy. And you know what's even more crazy? Because I do know about the Time 100 thing, so I'm just going to slip this in here. She's sitting up on a panel on the Time 100 and she's acting like the cat that got the cream. Yes, I know. I'm just doing so well. I don't think mental illness needs to be displayed in this way, as it's not being treated and it's just out here in front of us, and she can just act like a crazy person and alter reality. It's madness. Meghan makes one of the biggest podcast faux pas you can make. She begins to take up this guest time by talking about another business owner, founder, flounder, whatever they're calling themselves, okay? Vicky Sai of Tasha Cosmetics. I've told you that I thought that Tasha Cosmetics was a great line and I liked it, and I liked Vicky Sai when she appeared on With Love Meghan. But she takes up this guest time by giving big ups to Vicky Sai and going on and on about her. Up to this point, Vicky has not been a guest on this podcast. We don't know if she will ever be a future guest, but you cannot take time away from one guest by talking about another potential guest. I mean, Joe Rogan would never. She goes on and on about how Vicky must have taught both Meghan and Katie that you have to think of who you are selling the products to before you decide on what you will sell.
I remember very early on when I was talking about starting a business, she had said to me, okay, well, Meg, you need a reverse engineer. Who do you want to sell to? Mm-hmm. As opposed to just thinking, I'm going to create this thing and then we're going to see what's going to happen. And then, oh, I think they might be interested. No. Mm-hmm. Let's reverse engineer 5-10 years from now. Who's going to buy this? And everything you do starts at the intention of what the ultimate goal is. So you're not task-oriented, you're goal-oriented.
No, I'm laughing because that is one of the main things that Meghan Markle has been criticized about with her 9 products on As Ever that were actually not stocked and probably don't exist. People have been saying, who does she think she's selling these products to at these prices? Who is her target audience for that show? Who's watching her? Who does she think she's appealing to? So it's so unironically crazy that that is something that she is harping on. Yes, we have been taught the golden rule, girl. You know, you gotta know. But you don't know, Meghan. And that's why you're failing. And it proves that you don't take advice either. The kids. Back to the original question about whether Meghan Markle is going to talk about her pregnancies. Well, to answer that question, I would say almost. She does bring up the kids, but even in a more sinister way. You see, Katie does not have any children. So Meghan's like, well, girl, I do. And my kids ask about you all the time. They say, when are we going to see her again? When are we going to see Auntie Katie? Yeah.
I mean, our kids love Auntie Katie. It's their favorite when they run out with their cars like, Katie!
I know. I feel like I look for them first.
You do. I know.
Where are the kids?
That's okay. Where are the kids? Where are the kids? How are the kids?
But anyway, it kind of explains why Meghan couldn't talk about her pregnancies and medical problems and whatever the hell she wanted to talk about to make it look real. Because Katie doesn't have any. We get to the pleasantries. My favorite part. Well, it is really my favorite part because that means it's the end of the show. Thanks be to the Lord Jesus Christ. Meghan Markle said she is proud of Katie, which is very cringe to say that you're proud of a person who you have nothing to do with their success. But anyway, and then Meghan tops that off with the most ignorant statement I've heard thus far. To build while you are still building. You have to listen.
To now continue to build while you're still building. I know that sounds odd, but again, like...
I don't know if Meghan is stuck in an ulterior universe of inauthenticity to the point where even when words want to come out, they can't. So it just has to come out with garbage. I'm just trying to figure out how these things come out of her mouth. But to be very honest with you, this is where my brain shut down. I don't know if it was the hot dryer. I don't know if I was having a fever dream at this point, but thank you so much for going through this with me. I couldn't have done it without you. In summary, I would say that this was probably more informative than the previous podcast, but then it was also doubly more disingenuous. So when Meghan takes one step forward, she takes two steps back. There's just no hope. But at least there's hope for us. So please subscribe to this channel and like this video if you did like it. And thank you to Scatter Slots for sponsoring this video. Now go on and click the link in the description so you can try it out. I love you all so much, and you know that. Thank you. Bye.